The morning sky over New York looked different that day. People pointed their phones upward, capturing the strange lights that had appeared overnight. Social media was flooded with theories about the mysterious objects that now hung in Earth's orbit like dark pearls against the blue canvas of space. James Miller watched the news from his small apartment, his weathered hands gripping a coffee mug too tightly. After 30 years in military intelligence, he had developed an instinct for trouble. These objects weren't just visitors. They were warships. He recognized the formation from countless naval battles he had studied throughout his career. The world's attention turned to the United Nations building, where global leaders had gathered for an emergency session. The atmosphere was tense, filled with uncertainty and fear. Then it happened. Every screen, every phone, every digital device across the planet activated simultaneously. A deep, resonant voice filled the air. "People of Earth, I am the voice of the Dominion fleet. Your primitive world has been chosen for integration into our empire. You have 24 hours to surrender your governments and submit to Dominion rule. Resistance will result in demonstrations of our power." Miller's phone rang immediately. "Admiral Walker needs you at command," said the voice on the other end. Within an hour, he was being escorted through the underground levels of the Pentagon, places he hadn't visited since his retirement 5 years ago. The command center buzzed with activity. Screens showed the massive alien ships, 12 of them, each larger than an aircraft carrier. Admiral Thomas Walker, a tall man with steel-gray hair, stood at the center of the chaos, barking orders. "James," Walker nodded as Miller approached. "Tell me you see something we don't." Miller studied the sensor readings. The alien ships maintained perfect geometric spacing, never deviating by even a meter. Their communications followed precise patterns, transmitted at exact intervals. Everything about them screamed of rigid protocol and unwavering structure. "They're overconfident," Miller said, pointing to the data. "Look at their formation. They're not in a defensive posture. They've positioned themselves for a show of force, not actual combat. These aren't conquerors who expect resistance. They're bullies who expect submission." Walker's eyes narrowed. "You're sure?" "Their transmissions are being broadcast on all frequencies, but they're not monitoring most of them. They're not watching for responses. They're just shouting. And look at their ship positions. They've exposed their ventral sections. No experienced combat fleet would ever do that unless—" Miller paused, a slight smile forming on his face. "Unless they've never faced real opposition." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Military bases worldwide went into high alert, but carefully, very carefully, maintained an appearance of panic and disorganization. If Miller was right, this could work to their advantage. The voice transmitted again as the deadline approached. "Your time grows short, humans. We see your militaries scrambling, your leaders hiding. Submit, and your transition will be painless. Resist, and watch your cities burn." Miller studied each transmission, finding more patterns. The aliens used formal language, almost theatrical in its delivery. They seemed to follow a script, as if they'd done this many times before, and always gotten the same result. "They expect us to be primitive, because we haven't colonized other worlds," Miller explained to the assembled military leaders. "They judge civilization by expansion, not innovation. And that's their weakness." Admiral Walker nodded slowly. "So when they shoot, they won't expect us to shoot back." "More than that," Miller said, pointing to a global map. "They won't expect us to be ready. Their entire strategy depends on shock and awe. They've never had to fight a prepared opponent." As the 24-hour deadline neared its end, the voice made its final declaration. "Your time is up. Now witness the price of defiance." One of the alien ships moved into position above Ottawa, Canada. Energy readings spiked as their weapons powered up. Miller watched the alien ship's movements and checked his watch. 5 minutes until they would learn humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt and prepare. 5 minutes until the Dominion learned that humanity's response to their ultimatum had been ready for 15 years. The first shot was about to be fired. But it wouldn't be the aliens who would deliver the real surprise. 15 years earlier, on a cold night in Alaska, everything changed. A young James Miller stood in a secret underground facility, staring at the wreckage of an alien scout ship. It had crashed during a test flight, its pilot dead on impact. The vessel was small, barely larger than a car, but it changed humanity's path forever. "This is the third one we've found," General Walker, then just a colonel, had told him. "They've been watching us, testing our defenses. We got lucky. Their stealth systems failed during a solar storm." That night marked the beginning of Project Guardian, humanity's silent shield. World leaders had made a choice. Instead of announcing the discovery of alien life, they would prepare in secret. They knew that somewhere out there, someone was watching Earth, and their intentions might not be peaceful. Now, 15 years later, as the Dominion ships hung in orbit, Admiral Walker opened a hidden panel in the Pentagon's command center. He pressed his hand against a scanner, and the wall slid apart to reveal a second, more advanced control room. The screens here showed different information, the real state of Earth's defenses. "Show them," Walker commanded. Miller nodded and typed a series of commands. The main screen lit up with hundreds of dots orbiting Earth. "What everyone thinks are simple communication satellites," he explained, "are actually a network of defense platforms. We copied their technology from the scout ships and improved it." The room fell silent as they watched the real-time display. Those seemingly harmless satellites each carried weapons and shields more advanced than anything humanity had officially developed. For 15 years, every space launch had carried a secret payload, building Earth's invisible armor piece by piece. "The Dominion scanned our planet," Miller continued, "but they only saw what we wanted them to see. Old rockets, basic satellites, primitive defense systems. They never thought to look closer because they believe we're too primitive to hide anything." Walker brought up another screen showing underground bases on every continent. "We've been building these since the first crash. Each one holds squadrons of ships reverse-engineered from alien technology. We couldn't test them in space. That would have given away our secret. But the simulators show they work." The room's occupants watched as hidden hangar doors across the planet began to open. Ships that officially didn't exist powered up their engines. Pilots who had trained for years in secret prepared for humanity's first space battle. "But our greatest weapon isn't technology," Miller said, pointing to another screen. "It's this." The display showed a complex network of quantum communications. "We figured out how to use quantum entanglement for instant communication. No signals to intercept, no way to jam it. Every human ship and defense platform is connected through this network." Walker turned to face the assembled leaders. "For 15 years, we've lived a lie. We launched weather satellites that were really weapon platforms. We built research facilities that were actually shipyards. We trained test pilots who were really preparing for space combat." A junior officer rushed in with new data. "Sir, the Dominion ship is powering up its main weapon. They're targeting Ottawa." Walker nodded grimly. "Then it's time. Activate Project Guardian. All channels." Around the world, hidden commands went out. The innocent-looking satellites began to transform, weapons systems coming online. Underground bases opened their doors. Pilots ran to their ships. "Let them fire first," Miller advised. "Let them think they've won. The Dominion believes they're dealing with primitives who can barely reach orbit. Let's show them how wrong they are." Walker looked at the assembled leaders. 15 years ago, we chose to prepare in silence. We knew that somewhere out there, someone might come to conquer Earth. We chose not to announce our discoveries, not to celebrate our advances. We chose to wait, to build, to prepare. He turned to face the main screen, watching as the Dominion ship's weapon reached full power. "Now we show them the price of underestimating humanity. Now we show them what 15 years of silent preparation looks like." The Dominion was about to learn that humanity's apparent weakness had been its greatest deception. The Dominion ship's weapon flared like a new sun above Ottawa. A brilliant beam of energy cut through the atmosphere, aimed at the heart of Canada's capital. The Voice's message echoed worldwide. Witness the price of defiance. But the beam never reached its target. 50 miles above the city, the air shimmered. The energy blast crashed into an invisible wall, spreading out like water hitting glass. For a moment, the shield protecting Earth became visible, a faint blue dome stretching over the region. In the Pentagon's command center, Miller allowed himself a small smile. Shield holding at 89% capacity, he reported, just like we planned. The Voice's next transmission carried something new in its tone. Confusion. This is impossible. Your world has no such technology. You cannot. Admiral Walker cut off the alien transmission. All units, execute Battle Plan Alpha. Show them what humanity can really do. Around the Earth, hundreds of satellites transformed. Panels slid away, revealing weapons pointed at the Dominion fleet. The communication arrays that had been watching the aliens now revealed their true purpose. Target their engines and weapons first, Miller commanded. Don't let them regroup. 1,000 beams of light shot upward from Earth's orbit. The Dominion ships, still arranged in their perfect formation, had no time to react. Their shields caught the first wave, but they hadn't expected such precise attacks. Second wave, launch now, Walker ordered. Hidden doors opened in mountains and deserts across Earth. Ships rose from their underground hangars, their designs unlike anything publicly known to exist on Earth. 15 years of reverse engineering alien technology had produced vessels that matched the Dominion's own ships. The Voice's next transmission sounded almost panicked. This is not possible. You are primitives. You cannot have these weapons. Miller keyed the response channel. We've been waiting for you. For 15 years, we've been waiting. In space, the battle unfolded with brutal efficiency. The human ships moved in patterns the Dominion had never seen before. While alien fleets relied on strict formations, Earth's defenders attacked from all angles, coordinating through their quantum network. 3 Dominion ships damage, reported a tactical officer. Their formation is breaking. The aliens tried to regroup, but Earth's quantum communications gave humanity an enormous advantage. While the Dominion ships had to send signals back and forth, human forces coordinated instantly, attacking and retreating like a swarm of wasps. They're trying to target our ground bases, Miller observed, watching the tactical display. They still think our power comes from the surface. Walker nodded. Let them waste their time. Every satellite they ignore is another weapon they don't see coming. The Dominion's perfect formation had collapsed into chaos. Their ships, designed for overwhelming force against helpless planets, found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't track. Every time they targeted a human vessel, 3 more attacked from different directions. Sir, called out a sensor operator, one of their ships is retreating. 2 more are showing critical damage to their engines. In orbit, the battle had turned decisively. The Dominion's largest ship, carrying the Voice, tried to rally its forces, but the damage was done. Their shields weakened under the constant attacks from Earth's defense network. Miller studied their movements on the tactical display. Look at their response time. They have to wait for orders from the Voice before they can change tactics. Their whole command structure is falling apart. Walker straightened his uniform. Send the message we prepared. Let's see how the Voice handles this. On every frequency, in every language on Earth, humanity broadcast its response. You came to our world expecting surrender. You found preparation. You expected weakness. You found strength. You expected primitives. You found equals. This is humanity's response to your ultimatum. Leave our world, or learn how 15 years of preparation can become your worst nightmare. The battle wasn't over, but the first strike had sent its message. Humanity would not surrender. The Dominion had started this fight expecting an easy victory over primitives. Instead, they had walked into a trap 15 years in the making. And this was only the beginning. The battle entered its second hour. Above Earth, the once mighty Dominion fleet struggled to maintain formation. Their ships, damaged but still dangerous, tried to regroup for another attack. In the Pentagon's command center, Miller watched a demonstration of humanity's greatest advantage. On one screen, he could see the Dominion ships sending signals back and forth, each message taking precious seconds to reach its target. On another screen, Earth's forces communicated instantly through the quantum network. Their biggest weakness, Miller explained to Admiral Walker, is right there. Every move they make has to be approved by the voice. Every ship has to wait for orders. But our forces, he gestured to the tactical display where human ships moved like a perfectly choreographed dance. Show me the next phase, Walker commanded. Miller pressed a series of buttons, and a new set of signals appeared on the main screen. While they've been focused on our ships and satellites, our stealth units have moved into position. Around the world, ordinary-looking cargo ships that had been quietly launched over the past week revealed their true nature. Merchant vessels transformed, hidden weapons emerging from their hulls. Fishing boats dropped their nets, revealing sensor arrays. Even some passenger planes at high altitude carried secret equipment. Begin Operation Shadow, Walker ordered. The Dominion fleet suddenly found their communications filled with static. Their carefully coordinated signals became jumbled, confused. Each ship could only talk to the voice, but not to each other. What's happening? The voice's transmission crackled through the interference. How are you blocking our signals? Miller replied calmly, we're not blocking anything. We're just talking. All of us, all at once. It was true. Earth's forces had simply started broadcasting on every channel the Dominion used, overwhelming their communication systems with sheer volume. On the tactical display, the results were immediate. Dominion ships tried to coordinate their attacks, but couldn't hear each other's orders. Some fired at empty space where Earth vessels had been seconds before. Others held back, waiting for commands that never came through clearly. Launch the drones, Walker commanded. From bases around the world, thousands of small, unmanned craft took to the sky. They were simple machines, barely more than flying cameras, but they served their purpose. The Dominion ship's sensors couldn't tell which signals were real threats and which were just distractions. Their whole system depends on perfect coordination, Miller observed. Without it, they're just individual ships, each waiting to be told what to do. A junior officer rushed up with a new report. Sir, we're detecting power fluctuations in 3 of their main ships. They're having trouble maintaining their shields under all the signal traffic. Walker smiled grimly. Now they see the real power of humanity. Not just our weapons, but our ability to act independently. The quantum communication network hummed with activity as Earth's forces coordinated their next moves. While each human ship could make its own decisions, they all knew the larger plan. They could adapt, change tactics, seize opportunities without waiting for orders. Look at their formation, Miller pointed to the display. They're trying to create a defensive circle, but each ship is moving at a slightly different speed. They can't synchronize without clear communications. The voice's next transmission sounded angry, almost desperate. Stop this. Fight with honor. Face us directly. We are, Walker responded. We're fighting with every tool we have, every way we know how. That's what humans do. We don't follow your rules of warfare. We make our own. The battle had transformed. What started as a direct confrontation had become a complex dance of electronic warfare and tactical confusion. The Dominion's mighty fleet found itself fighting an enemy they couldn't properly track or coordinate against. Sir, called out a sensor operator, 2 more Dominion ships are falling out of formation. Their shields are failing. Miller nodded in satisfaction. They came expecting a primitive race that would follow their combat protocols. Instead, they found humanity. Adaptable, unpredictable, and far more prepared than they ever imagined. The tide had turned. The Dominion's greatest strength, Their rigid military structure had become their greatest weakness against humanity's fluid, adaptable strategy. The space around Earth had become a graveyard of broken Dominion ships. 3 of their vessels drifted powerless, their engines dark. 2 more struggled with failing shields, but the remaining 7 ships were regrouping, preparing for what looked like a final, desperate attack. Miller studied the tactical display in the Pentagon Command Center, noticing something odd about the Dominion's movements. "They're not fighting like a major power should," he said, pointing to their attack patterns. "Look at how basic their tactics are. It's like they've never faced real resistance before." Admiral Walker leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What are you thinking?" "I think we're not fighting the galaxy's greatest empire," Miller explained. "These ships, their tactics, they're like bullies who've only picked on weaker targets. A real military power would have backup plans, better strategies." A young lieutenant rushed into the command center. "Sir, we've decoded some of their internal communications. You need to see this." The screens filled with translated alien text. As Miller read, his suspicion turned to certainty. "Just as I thought. The Dominion isn't some vast empire. They're a minor power, expanding by intimidating worlds that can't fight back. They've been bluffing their way across the galaxy." Walker's face hardened. "Then let's call their bluff. All ships, execute Plan Delta." Earth's forces began their most daring move yet. The human ships, previously fighting in defensive formations, split into small groups. Each group targeted a different Dominion vessel, not just attacking but maneuvering in ways that forced the alien ships to separate. "They hate chaos," Miller observed. "Every time our ships do something unexpected, they hesitate. They don't know how to handle opponents who don't follow their rules." The quantum network hummed with activity as Earth's forces coordinated their attacks. A group of smaller human ships darted between 2 Dominion vessels, causing them to hold their fire for fear of hitting each other. Another squadron used the wreckage of disabled ships as cover, emerging to strike and disappear again. "Sir," called out a communications officer, "we're picking up arguments between Dominion commanders. Some want to retreat. The voice is threatening them to make them stay and fight." Miller smiled. "That's our opening. Launch Operation Truth." Across the battlefield, human ships began broadcasting encrypted Dominion communications they'd intercepted and decoded. Every alien ship could now hear their leaders arguing, threatening their own forces, revealing their deceptions. The voice's next transmission was filled with rage. "Silence these broadcasts. Ignore these human lies." But the damage was done. 2 more Dominion ships broke formation, their commanders refusing to follow orders. The mighty fleet that had arrived to conquer Earth was unraveling. "They're not just losing the battle," Miller said. "They're losing control of their own forces. Their whole empire is probably built on the same thing: threats and intimidation." Walker nodded. "Send the message to all Earth forces. Full attack pattern. Let's end this." The remaining human ships and defense platforms launched a coordinated assault. Without their perfect formation, without their aura of invincibility, the Dominion ships found themselves overwhelmed by opponents who had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. "The Voice's ship is trying to target our command centers," reported a tactical officer. "They still think they can win if they just hit the right target." "Let them waste their time," Miller replied. "They never understood our real strength. We don't have a single point of failure. Every ship, every commander can think and act independently." The battle reached its climax as Earth's forces pressed their advantage. The Dominion fleet, once so perfectly organized, had descended into chaos. Some ships fought on blindly, others tried to flee, while the voice screamed increasingly desperate orders that fewer and fewer commanders obeyed. "Send one last message," Walker commanded, "to all Dominion ships." Miller typed it himself. "Your empire is built on lies. Your power is an illusion. You can surrender and live, or continue this fight, and learn why humanity has survived every challenge in its history. The choice is yours." The tide hadn't just turned, It had become a tidal wave, and the Dominion was about to learn the final cost of underestimating humanity. The truth about the Dominion spread through their fleet like a virus. Every ship now knew they served not a mighty empire, but a band of cosmic bullies who had never faced a real fight. The Voice's authority crumbled with each passing minute. In the Pentagon Command Center, Miller watched as more alien ships broke formation. 3 Dominion vessels are powering down their weapons, he reported. They're requesting permission to surrender. Admiral Walker studied the tactical display, where the Voice's flagship still glowed with power, preparing for what looked like a suicide attack. And the others? 2 more destroyed, 1 drifting. That leaves the Voice and 2 loyal ships. Miller pointed to their erratic movement patterns. They're desperate now, dangerous. The Voice's transmission crackled through the command center, but the once mighty tone had become unhinged. If we cannot have this world, we will burn its skies. All ships, release the planet killers. Sir, a sensor operator's voice rose with alarm. The remaining ships are opening their hull plates. We're detecting massive energy readings. Miller's fingers flew across his console, analyzing the data. They're overloading their power cores. They mean to use their own ships as bombs. The explosion would poison Earth's atmosphere for decades. Walker's face hardened. Execute Protocol Omega. Now. Around the Earth, hidden platforms activated. Not weapons this time, but something humanity had developed from their studies of alien technology. Hundreds of gravity projection units, disguised as space debris, powered up simultaneously. The effect was immediate. The Dominion ships found themselves caught in overlapping gravity fields, unable to maneuver closer to Earth. Their own mass became a prison, holding them in place. Launch boarding teams, Walker commanded. Take those ships before they can self-destruct. Earth's special forces, trained for 15 years in zero-gravity combat, launched from hidden stations. Their ships, small and fast, slipped through the gaps in the Dominion's failing shields. The Voice screamed orders, but few were listening now. The surrendered Dominion ships began transmitting their databases to Earth, revealing the true nature of their empire. They had conquered 20 worlds, all of them peaceful civilizations that had never developed weapons. We're receiving transmissions from other alien worlds, reported a communications officer. The Dominion's victims. They're asking for help. Miller watched as human forces breached the Voice's flagship. The boarding teams moved with precision, using non-lethal weapons developed specifically for this moment. They weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to prove humanity was better than their attackers. Engineering section secured, came the report from the boarding teams. Power core stabilized. We've prevented the detonation. The Voice made one last broadcast, not to Earth this time, but to its own forces. You are all traitors. The Dominion will. The transmission cut off as human forces reached the bridge. The Voice, the being who had threatened to destroy Earth hours earlier, was captured not by superior weapons, but by soldiers using simple stun weapons and riot shields. In the command center, Miller received the first images from inside the Dominion ships. The aliens weren't the terrifying warriors they had pretended to be. They looked afraid, confused, like bullies who had finally met someone willing to stand up to them. Send word to the surrendered ships, Walker ordered. Tell them Earth will guarantee their safety if they help us free the worlds they conquered. Several Dominion commanders responded immediately, eager to switch sides. They transmitted strategic data, communication codes, defense plans, the entire framework of their false empire. Miller studied the incoming data. Their whole strategy relied on fear. They conquered primitive worlds, used their resources to build ships, then moved on to the next target. They never expected to find a world that could fight back. And now, Walker asked, now they'll help us contact the worlds they enslaved. The Dominion wasn't the power they claimed to be, but Earth can become something better, not conquerors, but protectors. As the last Dominion ship surrendered, humanity had not just won a battle. They had shattered a chain of oppression that stretched across 20 worlds. The day Earth responded had become the day the galaxy changed. But the story wasn't over. One final choice remained. What would humanity do with their victory? 1 week after the battle, representatives from 20 alien worlds gathered in the United Nations building in New York. The Voice, now without their command armor, sat in a corner under guard, watching as their empire crumbled completely. James Miller stood at the window, looking at the changed skyline. Dominion ships, now under Earth's control, floated peacefully in orbit. Beside him, Admiral Walker read reports from across the galaxy. The last Dominion outpost surrendered this morning, Walker said, putting down his tablet. Every world they conquered is free now. The question is, what do we do next? The answer came from the gathered aliens themselves. One by one, they approached the podium, each telling the same story. Their worlds had been peaceful, focused on art, science, or exploration. None had developed weapons or defenses. All had fallen to the Dominion's threats. "We ask Earth for protection," their spokesman said, his translator converting his musical language to English. "You did what none of us could. You stood against the Dominion and won. Will you help us rebuild? Will you teach us to defend ourselves?" Miller watched the Earth's leaders consider this request. Humanity had a choice to make. They had the Dominion's ships, their technology, their strategic positions. Earth could become the new empire, ruling through the same fear the Dominion had used. The President of the United Nations Security Council stood, and the room fell silent. "Today, humanity makes its choice," she announced. "We will not become conquerors. We choose to be protectors." She outlined Earth's proposal, a new alliance, with Earth providing defense, while other worlds shared their knowledge of art, science, and exploration. Each world would remain free, but all would stand together against any future threats. "The Dominion ruled through fear," she continued. "We choose to lead through cooperation. They demanded submission. We offer partnership." The Voice spoke for the first time since their capture, their tone now stripped of its former power. "You are fools. The galaxy is cruel. Only the strong survive." Miller turned to them. "You're wrong. We survived because we worked together. Every nation on Earth shared their resources, their knowledge, their strength. That's why we beat you. Not because we were stronger, but because we were united." The alien representatives talked among themselves, their translators working overtime. Then, one by one, they stepped forward to sign the new alliance treaty. Earth would protect them, help them develop defenses, while they shared their advanced knowledge of space travel, medicine, and science. "Look at their faces," Walker said quietly to Miller. "They expected us to be like the Dominion, to demand their resources, to rule them through fear. They never expected us to offer friendship." The signing ceremony completed, and a new era began. Earth ships, crewed by both humans and aliens, departed to help free the remaining Dominion outposts. Research teams from 20 worlds began sharing their knowledge, starting projects that would benefit all. In orbit, construction began on the Alliance Defense Station, a symbol of the new partnership. Ships from every world would train there, learning to work together, to defend each other. "What happens to the Voice?" Walker asked, as they watched the former tyrant being led away. "They'll face justice," Miller replied, "but not revenge. That's another way we're different from them." The sun set over New York, its light reflecting off the Dominion ships that now served a greater purpose. Humanity had passed its greatest test, not just surviving the attack, but choosing what to do with victory. In the months that followed, the alliance grew stronger. More worlds joined, attracted not by fear, but by the promise of mutual protection and shared knowledge. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or tactics, but its ability to unite, to cooperate, to turn enemies into allies. "The day humanity responded," Miller said, watching the first joint human-alien crew launch into space, "wasn't just about fighting back. It was about showing there's a better way." The voice had asked Earth to submit. Instead, humanity had shown the galaxy how to stand together. The day that started with a demand for surrender ended with a promise of protection, turning a moment of crisis into an age of cooperation. That was humanity's true response, not just victory in battle, but wisdom in peace.